Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There Live, an entertainment live stream and podcast focused on movies, TV shows and related media. My name is Keith Isles. I am an independent filmmaker and a lifelong enthusiast of said movies and TV series of all different genres from all different eras. So if you're new here, welcome. Thanks for checking out the channel. Really appreciate that. Even if you're not new here, you may be thinking, well, hold on a second. We haven't seen very much from Home Media Minefield for quite some time. And you'd be absolutely right. This is actually the first live stream I've done this year. It's nearly a year ago since my last one. And in terms of other material, really, all I've produced in the last 12 months are a couple of physical media unboxings and not much else. Reasons for that, it's varied. My personal life has been quite busy. My work life has been extremely busy. And even my creative life has been busier than usual, I'm pleased to say. So between a combination of those things, something has had to give. We've only got so much time, even though there are of course multiple timelines and universes, but in this universe I've only got so much time to do this stuff. So there have been numerous movies over the summer, big movies, small movies, TV shows that I've wanted to talk about and just haven't been able to. There's been things like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I thought was wonderful. Thankfully I was invited on to, big shout out to the Mr. Brown Alliance. Got invited onto a couple of the shows, one to talk about Kingdom of Planet of the Apes, the other to talk about Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, which I enjoyed. But there's also been plenty of other movies, from Furiosa to Longlegs to Horizon, an American Saga, and all sorts of things in between. And every week I see so many movies, and I'm usually invested in a number of TV shows as well. And I often want to discuss all of these things, but don't necessarily have the time to do it. So it isn't that I've lost my passion for this, although we will get into that, I think, in the conversation. I've lost my passion for certain things, but overall, when it comes to film and television, I'm still as passionate as ever and trying still to create a lot of my own work as well. So that's a little bit of the caveat preamble stuff. I'm not here alone, you'll probably be pleased to know. I've got numerous guests from across the multiverse that want to join me today, that have actually reached out to me and suggested, they're the very reason that this is happening tonight. They've suggested, why don't we come and why don't we talk about the latest film that's only come out a couple of days back, which is obviously Deadpool and Wolverine. There's also been some announcements from Marvel Studios at Comic-Con and things of that nature. And let's have a chat about this stuff. And I figured, why not? With regards to the channel update, as I said, I've only done really a couple of product unboxings. There's the Blu-ray there of the Steelbook of Skyfall. As you know, I do a lot of Bond content on here, and I'm pleased to say that even though I've put out no content, I have recently hit that coveted 1,000 subscribers. So I'm still obviously a very, very small channel, but I want to thank everybody that has subscribed and promoted the channel and helped me get at least to that sort of first milestone. And we'll see where we go from there. So a big thank you for that. And on that subject, if you're watching this or you've discovered it later when it's not live and you found it somewhat entertaining, please do consider giving it a like, subscribing to the channel, bell notification in case it takes me another year to do more content and all that. And I may well be encouraged to produce more content along the way. Also, if you are watching us live, I can see there are a few people watching this live, and you want to get involved in the chat and have your say. If you vehemently disagree with anything we're saying, or indeed you agree and you want to put a comment in there, then I will try my absolute utmost to get to it and read it out online. So anyway, for the first guest, who's also put a comment, for the first guest, he was my co-host on the Let's See What's Out There podcast and co-producer of that. He's a massive Star Trek fan. I know when it comes to Marvel stuff, he sort of dips in and out of the whole thing. So joining us from New York, I welcome Pete Mealy.
Hey, Keith. Good to see you again.
It's been way too long, and thank you for the little congrats there. My God, well, different in that picture.
Yeah. That's a long time ago. But yeah, you know, that 1,000 subscribers is huge, and I'm really proud of you. You know, great work.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, it has taken 4 years or whatever to get to that. But like I said, I haven't produced any content in, well, the good part of eight months or whatever. So, you know, not bad. And I'm very grateful for all of that. But how are you anyway? I have missed the biggest thing I've missed actually is doing the regular stream with you. So
yeah,
how are things? How's your
things
world?
are well. Things are well. You know, there's a lot going on. And I don't know. I'm hopeful that maybe we can get back into it when Strange New Worlds season 3 comes out. Yeah.
Well, yes, and I'm sure we will touch on this when we talk about Hollywood franchises in general, and sort of where we're at, because obviously those sort of things is what this channel's been built on in many respects. Yes, it was initially about physical media, home media, hence the name, and releases and reviews and the technology surrounding it, the consumption models, all of that sort of stuff. That was kind of initially it. But also, you know, our podcast, Let's See What's Out There, spawned from Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
And obviously from there, we then ended up doing quite a few of the Marvel shows. Quite a few of those, actually.
Yeah.
As well as, of course, Star Trek and Star Wars and retrospectives on movies and TV shows from a bygone era as well. So, and incidentally, if you're watching this, those are all available on the channel, and the podcast is available on all good podcatchers. So please check that out as well. Okay, next up across the multiverse, again, a regular guest on this show when it was running. He is an artist and a writer, and was a co-host on some of the Star Wars shows I did. So welcome, Graham Williams, or Graypool. How you doing, Graypool?
All very well. Thank you very much, Keith. Thanks for having me back. Very much looking forward to having a chat and a giggle with you guys today.
It's always a chat and a giggle with you. And what have you been working on, Graham? What are you up to?
Oh gosh, I'll try and make this quick. So I have recently been continuing with my initial novel, where the river bends, and also I started a degree course in illustration as well. So some time off work recently to focus in on that. So really pushing my artistry into illustration as well as my writing as well. So okay. I've been tremendously busy. And as we'll get into later on, how movies have kind of been passing me by of late. But yeah, I know there'll be more chat on other reasons why I haven't been to the movies so much. But yeah, thanks. I've been really busy. I've also been trying to grow a little bit of a garden here as well, to just get into some facial horticulture as well. It's just that's a side project.
Very nice. And that side project seems to be going well from this angle, Graham.
Yeah, I just need to grow the sides, really, for this.
Yes. Are you kind of going for an inverse Wolverine? Is that what the idea is?
It does what, yeah.
I did say to my wife, because if I had to trim it, that's what would happen. And I'm surprised you didn't hear the scream from where you are, Keith. You are about 5 miles away from me. But no. This is actually sanctioned. It is sponsored by my wife, especially my daughter as well, who would like me to do a Gandalf by growing it long, by the way, in case you're wondering what the euphemism Gandalf really is, what that means in Great Britain. Yeah. Yes, you would like me to grow it a bit longer. So we're just playing at the moment. We'll see how far we go.
I was very tempted, but I bottled out. I was very tempted to try and create some Wolverine horns with my my hair, but
please do and post it on and post the socials. I'll find a way to sponsor you somehow.
Cool. Well, also joining us as well from slightly closer to home again, got another filmmaker and writer joining us, and he's also been a guest on a number of shows. So welcome, Clive Ashenden. How you doing, Clive?
Hey, Keith. Maximum effort. That's what we're putting in today, right?
I like it. I like it. Yes. Yeah. I feel like you dressed the set especially. Yeah.
A little bit. I'm also wearing my tribute to the classic like brown and black Wolverine costume. I just go, with the brown t-shirt. So yeah. Nice.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that all this effort is being made. That's amazing. And how's life with you generally, Clive?
Well, I'm a full-time dad at the moment. I got 2 very young kids, and so life is very busy, and there's not a lot of sleep at the moment. So, and it also means that any kind of time to enjoy, like media, film, TV, comics, whatever, is even more kind of like squeezed than it once was. So I'm sure when we get into that kind of chat about, where we are with kind of franchises and things like that, and what's really kind of like making us passionate, it's fun. Like when the amount of kind of viewing time you got goes down, then suddenly it becomes very apparent like what what the things are that actually are kind of important to you, what the things are that you're actually looking forward to, and what the things are you're like, oh yeah, I'll get to that like some point in the future, because there's quite a few, there's quite a few kind of franchisey things where I've been like, yeah, I'll maybe get to that,
Ooh, definitely hold that thought, because that is something that I want to talk about in this. I know obviously we're here to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine, but trust me, as you've probably seen on the internet, there are literally thousands of channels, much bigger channels than this, that are going into the minutiae of detail about it. And of course, I want to have fun and chat about some of that. But I do also want to talk about slightly the bigger picture as well around this stuff and what it actually means. So I like it, Clive. Hold that thought there. It wasn't, this wasn't even scripted. So there you go. We're
there we go. Page. Well, all the heads of Disney, they're all tuned into this live stream, right?
Yeah,
they're gonna be making notes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay,
I've got Kevin Feige is actually messaging me as we speak. Obviously,
of course.
What are you talking about, you loon? So there you go. Yeah. And there were quite a few other guests that were going to come on this, and for whatever reasons couldn't make it. So they're obviously in different timelines. They're probably guesting on this show, on Earth 007 or something like that. But, but I do have one other special guest joining us from, well, even further than Pete's neck of the woods, because he's joining us from the West Coast. He has been on the stream before. Welcome, your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete. How you doing,
everybody? Hey.
Are you well?
Hey. Yep. How's everybody doing? I'm doing well. Yeah, surviving like the rest of us.
Good. But you actually volunteered, Pete, when you saw that I was doing this.
Yeah, anytime I can get into some comic nerd talk.
Great. Okay, because I was going to say the previous ones you've been on have mainly been about horror, and are usually with Josh from Movie Timelines. By the way, anyone watching out there, you need to check out Josh's work on Movie Timelines. It is very good indeed. And me and Josh were supposed to do an episode on the Exorcist and the Omen franchise, one of those retrospectives that we do. But unfortunately, just because of both of our schedules and whatever, we weren't able to actually get that one together yet. But we may well come back to that. So
that'd be something to discuss.
Yeah, let us know in the comments, people, if you want us to do a stream on that. But
I blame the devil. Exactly.
The devil had his work cut out for him. So there you go. But Uncle Pete, I kind of want you, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, because I know you're a YouTuber as well. Okay, a fellow YouTuber. And we'll talk about your channel before the end of the stream. But would you mind showing us your impressive den room there that you're I'm gonna do it so you're full screen for this.
Yeah, I call this my comic cave.
How do I do
Oh.
this? Hold on a second.
Okay.
Hold on a second. There we go. Right, yeah. So
I call this my comic cave. So I got the Wolverine popcorn bucket right there.
Oh, nice.
So it's my dog Roger that sleeping that way. So yeah, I got my light right there. But see, Spider-Man's my favorite. So I got my little Spider-Verse there. And I got Wolverine in the corner, some more other figures, MCU. And I got going across this way. Sorry, I'm using my laptop for that.
No, it's cool. Sorry, I put you on the spot.
Oh, no worries. And then there's Deadpool. And let me zoom around.
You got a Johnny Flame shield there in the corner.
Yep, you're right. And then some more stuff out there that I call my comic cave.
Oh, seriously, yeah. Thanks for doing that. I think that's
yes.
Awesome.
My wife. People say, "Oh, did your wife?" My wife MJ, graced me with this spot that she allowed me to. She moved out. She's in the other room next, so she can't handle all the clutter. But this is my little comic cave.
Love it. No, that's great. Thanks for that. It's just when you showed me that earlier, I thought, we've got to show that on the show because people will want to see that. And just a hello there to Eastland Burkholder, who's watching. Hi, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. If you've got any comments, please put them in, and I will share them as we go along. Anyway, to kick off with this whole thing, I know there's a lot of preamble there, but to kick off, I just wanted to sort of go round and ask you guys, kind of individually, before we get into talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. Where were you prior to seeing that film? Where were you with the whole X-Men franchise, Marvel Cinematic Universe, and all the related media and stuff going into it? And I'm going to start actually with you, Pete Mealy.
So I think Clive, you talked about how when you have kids, right, and that sort of shifts priorities. And so I will say, I had kids kind of after the big X-Men wave, but before the MCU really kicked off, I think. So I started hard on X-Men, and then in recent years have fallen off. Like I'm not up on X-Men '97 or there was another TV show I missed in there, right, in like the 2015s or something. Inhumans, was that it?
Oh wow, yes, there was.
Right, all of that, right? So I know that there's stuff that I've missed, but the original movies, I was right there, all the way through. I think, I guess, like, what is it? The Apocalypse one. Crap, that's the wrong name. But you know what I'm talking, right? What was that one called?
Well, there was Apocalypse, and then there was Dark Phoenix.
Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix came out like
Yeah.
when I was having kids, so didn't see them in the theaters. Just watched those on like home video.
Right.
But yeah, like X-Men 2. What are those? The Bryan Singers. Huge fan, right? Really loved them. Not big into the comic books, right? Just more into the movies. Yeah.
And what about MCU? Where were you? Because we did obviously we did a few shows early on with the streaming shows, and I just wondered sort of, there are reasons why it stopped at a certain point from my point of view, but I just wonder where you were with that.
I mean, I think definitely whatever this is, phase 5, phase 4, right? Whatever came after phase 5 is after Endgame or after.
Well, basically, Endgame ended sort of phase 3, Spider-Man Far From Home and Endgame, and then you had sort of 4 and 5 is what they call the
Yeah.
Calling it the multiverse saga. Which,
So I think I'm at like 90% on phase 4 and 5. There's definitely stuff that like I started and meant to finish but didn't, like Loki. And other stuff that I started and made myself finish. I definitely intended to see the Marvels in theaters, but didn't. Caught it on home video. Or whatever. Not home video. Sorry. I sound like I'm still living in the 90s. I apologize. Disney Plus. But yeah. Yeah, so I'd say I'm at like 90% caught up. There's some stuff that I know has slipped through the cracks. Just last week, somebody was like, well, did you ever watch Cloak and Dagger? And I was like, is that MCU? I'd never even heard of it. But yeah.
Adjacent. Yeah, something like that. But yeah. Fair enough. Cool. All right. What about you, Graham?
Tuned out up until now. About last year, I think, which is a bit of a shocker considering that there was a bit of a renaissance for MCU with my daughter was coming of age, around 10, 11 years old, and introduced her through, firstly, streaming, Disney Plus. She just got hooked, absolutely. Still a massive fan of what phase 1, phase 2 were. And then obviously into phase 3, just binged watched movies, and then the TV series came along. But when it was during Loki, and this was and we would switch them around a bit because we watched Moon Knight and we loved that. We two of us together, because I was tuning out, but because of her and her enthusiasm, I just went, okay, I'm gonna stick to MCU, and the quality just absolutely dipped, nosedived for me, and I just didn't want to spend my time other than with my daughter, and then just watching these movies and TV series. So yeah, both of us absolutely completely tuned out. My daughter goes back to the older stuff. Yeah, she's 13. What does she know, right? What were the 90s? But the distant past there, Mr. Mealy.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah. So I was massively into Spider-Man comics, but Spider-Man with the Tobey Maguire 2. I discount the third. Trash, so that's just completely parked. And then obviously the Andrew Garfield ones, whoops. But then the X-Men, the Bryan Singer ones, excellent. Introducing my daughter. X-Men 2 is one of my favorite Marvel-based movies, because we're not bringing DC into this just yet. But tuned out, I'm afraid, and it literally was an evening out with your good self and Clive here, and the fact it was Deadpool and there was a glimmer that it could be entertaining and fun, that I went to see this film. Otherwise, I was just, my bottom was getting splinters because I was sat on the fence on this particular movie. Otherwise, I was next door, tuned out to all of this.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm making a quick note here of something that I'm going to come back to do with that. But I've made a little note there while I think of it. Clive, same question to you.
Well, okay. So from the X-Men kind of side of things, I was a big reader of X-Men back in the late 80s, early 90s. That's when I kind of read the most stuff. And, then loved the Wolverine character, was, obviously saw all of the Fox X-Men movies, from the really good ones through to the X-Men Origins Wolverine, and the sort of the dregs, as it kind of like sort of stumbled its way to the end. Actually, what have I not seen? I haven't seen what was the final, what was the the New Mutants one. I haven't seen that. That's the only one, I think, the only Fox one I haven't caught up with. So, I enjoyed those to varying degrees. Always loved the Wolverine character and loved the depiction of Wolverine by Hugh Jackman. Thought that was fantastic. Even in the films where his claws look a bit plasticky and rubbish CG. But, thankfully that's not the case in this one. And then, with the MCU, was fully invested up through kind of Endgame. And then there has been for me a falling off. I've kept up with the films, but not always at the cinema. There was that, obviously there's the break with COVID and then it's almost as though like the MCU caught COVID, without wanting to be flip about it, because I know that. Do you know what I mean? It's like it was just sort of a
little bit of brain fog.
Yeah, well, like when it finally stumbles back into the cinemas, it's lost a step. It's just not really, there's some bright spots. So Spider-Man No Way Home, really loved that. And I persevered with the TV stuff, but then when it and some of it I really enjoyed, even though some of it annoyed me. But then when you get to stuff like Secret Invasion, I just how can you waste so many good people in something like that? And how could that's not even particularly a comic where I read a lot around it or whatever. So I can't come a bit. I felt like, great, I'm coming to it fresh. I know that they're going to do their thing. It's going to be an MCU thing, but just don't be boring, please. Just don't bore me to tears. And that one kind of did. And then with the MCU kind of movies generally, and this whole kind of arc they were building up, initially I was like, oh, they're bringing in Kang, fantastic. Really enjoyed a load of Kang comics. And then just every appearance of Kang, just it sort of went down a notch. And I enjoyed Loki as a series, but in terms of building up Kang as an adversary, it was just like they just kept introducing like all these sort of rubbish variants of him, and I'm not sure how that's supposed to build up Kang as a big bad, and then when he does appear in Ant-Man, Quantumania, it's just so, and even without like the stuff that's happened outside of that with with the actor playing Kang and why he's been cast away and why they're no longer doing that. It just they just so totally fumbled that whole piece, and I'm just like, just film Avengers forever, like it's right there, just or I'm sure Uncle Pete could like list like another like 5 like really good like Kang like storylines they could have picked, and yet they just sort of frittered it away and all this sort of trying to make him Thanos Mark II, and it just
well, more about Kang will definitely come up in later on in this stream, I think. So so that's good. Uncle Pete, before we come to you, look, Josh from Movie Timelines is watching and said, "Hey guys," so hey, right back at you, Josh. I don't know whether you were around earlier for the plug for your channel, but we hope it's all going well. We hope your book is selling plenty out there as well. So check out Movie Timelines and Josh's work. And we've also got a comment here from Alua Blue Vegan saying garbage film. Now, is that referring to Deadpool and Wolverine or something else we mentioned? So please let us know. So Uncle Pete, your turn. Where are you with all this prior to Deadpool and Wolverine?
I remember in the 80s collecting these Marvel trading cards. That's how I initially started learning about all these Marvel characters and stuff. You go to the ice cream truck or the meal truck and you buy for $0.25 and now you get these cards. So that started my passion for comics. Then I'm reading comics as a kid. I was like, man, if I could see this stuff on the big screen, But all we got in the 90s was that Roger Corman Fantastic Four and some made-for-TV Captain America movies, Spider-Man in the 70s, and the Hulk. So anytime that we got to see something on the big screen, it's like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Like, with the Superman films and stuff. But I was always more Marvel, so I love the X-Men films. And to me, it was like a roller coaster. You got some peaks and valleys, some really great films, some ones not so great. But still, it was enough to get me to go to the theater to go see them. Then the MCU started. I'm like, oh, we're hitting a lot of highs. And then we hit the absolute peak with Infinity War and Endgame. It's just like the pinnacle of comic book cinema. It had heart. It had emotion. It had scares. It had love. It had everything. I remember at the end of Infinity War, leaving the theater like, I'm not okay, because I was just so affected by that story. And then I remember when leaving in Endgame, I got goosebumps now. I was on such a high because it was such an amazing ending. But then after Endgame, it's just been downhill for me. No Way Home, fantastic. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, fantastic. Mm-hmm. Other than those two films, I haven't cared about Marvel, the MCU. I got excited for this one. More and more is coming out. Oh, we're finally going to get it. But most of the stuff after Infinity War, No Way Home and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I really didn't care less. I still haven't seen the Marvels because I had nothing invested to go see it. Quantumania, I wanted so desperately to like it. And I was like, is that Kang or Kang Light? It was nothing Kang-esque. Kang's got his chair and he travels through time. They were like, oh, is that his chair? Oh, okay. But yeah, this movie was it was that cherry on top I wanted.
Yeah, no, that's a fair comment. Josh is saying he's watching from work, by the way. Lol. So, I hear you. I mean, from my point of view, I have talked ad nauseum about the X-Men franchise and the Infinity Saga and all of those on previous streams, so I don't want to repeat myself and go all into that. Suffice to say, after Endgame and Spider-Man No Way Home, both of which we covered on this channel, but after that was when I started to really lose interest. Black Widow I thought was okay, but 10 years too late.
Yeah.
There were lots of them that I missed after that. I didn't care for Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. The TV shows, we covered quite a lot of them here, up to Moon Knight, which, Graham, I know you liked, but I kind of struggled with. And after that, I just kind of tuned out with that stuff as well. Cancelled my Disney subscription just because I wasn't enjoying the MCU content. I also, whole nother podcast, but wasn't really enjoying the Star Wars content either, particularly. And, I couldn't believe it because I thought to myself, my God, if you'd gone back and told the, 8-year-old me that I'd have apathy for these things in the future, probably the first question I'd say is, what does apathy mean? Because I probably didn't know at 8 years old, but I'd have been very surprised that live action superheroes and sci-fi shows and space fantasies and all of this sort of thing, I'd be a little bit meh about, even as an older dude, so yeah.
I forgot that X-Men 97 was amazing. I loved X-Men 97.
Okay, I haven't checked that out yet.
Absolutely adored it because I grew up on a 90s X-Men cartoon.
Of course.
I absolutely adored it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that might get mentioned. But the thing I made a note of that Graham kind of reminded me of. So I've obviously seen, I've actually been lucky enough to see Deadpool and Wolverine twice because I managed to go to a BAFTA preview, which I'm lucky that I get to go on those things. So I feel very privileged before it comes out. And I did indeed go and see it with Clive and Graham. Funny enough, my girlfriend actually wanted to go and see it, I think mainly for Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. But I did say to her before we went, I said, have you seen any films or TV series in the MCU? And she said, no, none of them. I said, okay, have you seen any of the X-Men films? Well, I think I saw one of them. She said, so I was like, this film probably isn't going to work for you because without that knowledge, pretty much most of the jokes in this are going to fall flat, apart from the naughty jokes and stuff. But all of the other sort of references aren't going to register. So, but the thing that Graham reminded me was in 2017, Graham, you and I were lucky enough to go to a special screening of Logan.
Yeah.
With Hugh Jackman doing a Q&A.
And Daphne Keane.
And Daphne Keane, who is back in this film, which is great. Now, I have to say, I had a lot of time for Logan, as you know, and James Mangold. I was always a fan of his films prior to then anyway. But I thought Logan was kind of perfect. And when I heard they were doing this, much as I like Hugh Jackman, I think he's great. And I know he and Ryan Reynolds are good friends and all of this. I have to say, I went into this movie thinking, oh, do I need this? Because is it going to crap on the absolute perfect finish of of Logan? And I like the fact that they actually literally turned that into a joke, because I guess they knew everybody would be saying that. But I wanted to ask you guys how you felt about that going in. Do you think that this, I know it's a multiverse, which is obviously an excuse to do anything in drama now, and I know it's a different variant of Wolverine, etc. But do you think that this kind of takes away from Logan, or do you think it doesn't matter because we've still got Logan as a great film anyway?
I don't think it takes away, because I think even in the movie, Deadpool says you're kind of entering at a low point, which is it's what everybody's been thinking. And I think everyone can agree, most people can agree that Logan was just, I mean, who didn't cry at the end of that movie? It's just so amazingly done. Like you said, it was one of those near perfect movies. Yeah. And again, we wanted to hit those heights again. And I think revisiting that reminded us, like, hey, we still got it. So I don't think it takes away from it, because if you know Deadpool and his humor, he's dancing in sync, beating everybody up with the skeleton. It doesn't poo-poo on the legacy of Logan. It just says, okay, we're just going to veer off on this road and do something to try and get that speed again.
Yeah. My take.
Oh, go on, Pete.
So my take on this was that, the first Deadpool movie came out on Valentine's Day, and the big joke was that it's going to be a love story, right? When you were going into it, right? And then lo and behold, it is a wonderful, beautiful love story, right? And then the second movie, the second Deadpool, came out on Mother's Day, and they didn't make the joke publicly about it being a childhood movie, right? Or a movie about raising children, but it is a movie about raising children. And it is great at that. Like, I think they handled that plot point in the second one amazingly. So I went into this one going, well, it's not being released on any sort of holiday that I can figure out. But if they're saying that this is going to be a friendship film, then I'm all in. And I went in fully ready for it. And I think they nailed it again. Not to go too spoilery, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but I mean, I put in the opening slide to this that there will be spoilers in this, not just for Wolverine and Deadpool and Wolverine, but for probably most of the X-Men and Marvel Cinematic Universe. So no worries about spoilers, people.
Yeah. Warned. But yeah, I really, I went in open-hearted, and I think was rewarded there. Yeah.
But on the Logan legacy, I think I mentioned it after watching the movie, is that those jokes and most of the jokes in this movie, they went 100%. They committed. There were no soft punches. There were no pulling back. They had Logan, the ending, and they just went for it. They could have just made a quick joke, into the grave. Oh, look. Yeah, it made us laugh hard as well, by the way, the fact they just dragged the skeleton out and were just starting to have a bit of a conversation with the skeleton. Now, that's gone so far. I think that's really pushed it. but they pushed it even further again. And
Yeah.
that's where I think props to them. Absolute well done to all the filmmakers for doing that and for really hitting all the other jokes as well. You've got everything from the Deadpool movies too, they have referenced and pushed on. So I think they really crank the jokes up to the extreme, but they went for it. Now the fact I think it's R-rated in the States, isn't it? It's a 15 here, which is one less than an 18. Yeah, so it's kind of middle ground. You kind of, some kids can really, you know, if they're a bit desensitized, can go for it. So there's a lot of jokes there. But the Logan one, I won't have my daughter watch Logan just yet, just because it's a bit too ultra violent. She hasn't desensitized there.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's references here in Deadpool, but I know that going from Logan into Deadpool 3, I think also she and anybody else doing that would get the reference. But if they did anything less, it would almost be sacrilegious. And to what I agree with Uncle Pete was just one of the best movies as well, and a real high point, a peak in Marvel movie making, even though it was an MCU at the time. But if they hadn't actually committed 500% to the jokes, I think, yeah, they really would have got into trouble. We would have been giggling a bit or chuckling a bit awkwardly, whereas we were just, all of us were guffawing. The whole cinema was laughing out loud.
Yeah. Do you agree, Clive?
I mean, when I came to it, I was kind of came into it with a kind of thing of, because of the way that Logan turned out, I sort of felt like Hugh Jackman, you know, he can't need the money that much, right? He can't. He must be doing okay.
He just got divorced.
Oh, maybe he does then. But no, but I sort of felt like, because he's always been quite protective of the character, that he wouldn't sign up for it if he thought, you know, it just was just going to crap all over like the legacy, like of the character, of what they did in Logan. And, you know, as kind of sarky and cynical and, you know, mocking as Deadpool is, there's always like that kind of, you know, if you strip it away, they're a bunch of comic nerds and they love it, right? And that's where a lot of, you know, I mean, you can say, oh yeah, it's just, you know, fan service, you know, they're just sort of throwing in all these kind of Easter eggy things. But I genuinely think, like, you know, that Ryan Reynolds and the guys writing it genuinely kind of love the characters.
Yeah.
And so I guess, you know, there's that kind of little bit of worry if, like, they join the MCU, you know, Marvel, you know, are they kind of, are they going to have their sort of legs cut out from under them a little bit? You know, is it going to be sort of toned down? Which, but you know, so I was a little bit like, okay, but you know, I thought, look, it's going to be a laugh. You know, after the previous one, you know, like Deadpool 2, for me, it didn't quite have the heart of Deadpool 1. I really, you know, spoilers, really hated the fridging of a major character that happens like right at the beginning of the film. It kind of sort of soured the film, even that, despite how it ended up. So, you know, so I'm coming to this one, I'm thinking, okay, I really hope that all this sort of like ongoing build up there's been in every single Deadpool film about, you know, jokes about Hugh Jackman, about Wolverine, about, you know, that I really hope that they kind of, you know, pay that off. So,
yeah. And they certainly, I've got to give it to them. They certainly, in terms of the R rating thing, they didn't pull back on the, you know, the violence and the profanity and the sexual humor. I mean, it was all there, just like the first two. And really, yeah, they really committed to that. Josh has actually put, part of the problem is that they had the chance to do something different with Logan since it's a variant, but then just repeat the arc. Sorry, repeat of his arc from Logan. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, it is a fair
Yeah.
point.
Oh, I kind of disagree, but okay.
Okay, no, come on, Pete.
that's
Disagree.
good.
That's good.
I do. I mean, I haven't seen Logan super recently, but my take on it was that again, it goes back to sort of friendship, right? And Logan as a character has always been fairly standoffish, right? And I think the Logan from the movie Logan, how many times can I say Logan in one sentence? But Logan from the movie Logan was that someone who had always tried to do the right thing with his own sort of standoffish way, and had those sort of chains of responsibility had gotten him into a place where he was old, angry, and bitter. But the Wolverine from this movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, was someone who had tried to avoid it and then regretted not being chained down by those responsibilities, and so that's what you saw with this character. I mean, maybe I'm splitting hairs, but yeah, I didn't have that problem with it.
Fair enough. No, that's fair. By the way, because I did not rewatch the other Deadpool films prior to going into this. I had obviously seen them both and knew them, and I think I've also had them on physical media, as one would expect from me and this channel. But did I miss something? One of the things I was slightly distracted by is I was expecting the character played by TJ Miller. Is it Weasel? Was that the name of the character?
He didn't show up because I think he's had some Me Too accusations.
Oh, right. Okay. Fair enough.
He's had some real world issues. Well, it
was an alternate timeline, so he might not have been there anyway, right?
Okay. I mean, like considering how much they had, I don't remember her name now, right? But his girlfriend in the third one, right? Like it'd be a crime if TJ Miller showed up more than she did. Yeah.
No. That's fine. It was something I hadn't realized that, and that was something that did distract me slightly at one point, because I was looking when he was going, it's just you 9 people here around the table, are my friends, and I was thinking, what about his other mate? But okay, that explains a lot.
That's a fair point, because they didn't reference him, but they did reference Cable.
Yes.
From Deadpool 2 not being there, but then they 100%, well, 200% really, brought Peter in as well. So previous characters from Deadpool movies. So yeah, it's a fair question there, because they didn't even reference Weasel not being around. Oh no, they also had what's his face? The guy who's got a longer beard than myself and Uncle Pete.
The biker.
Yeah. He's actually in it too. So they actually, continuity wise, they had brought in, but Weasel they hadn't, and not even. Well, there may have been a reference. There was so much being shot at us, and we may have laughed. So good point there, Keith. Yeah. So maybe it's because they just wanted to, obviously, not draw attention to the real world issues that were happening.
Okay, I've got a bit of pushback from Josh here. So in Logan, he was an older Logan who saw his friends and associates all taken out and become a bitter, drunk loner who is eventually led to realize that he cares and can help. In this movie, same.
Yeah, I still slightly disagree, because I think in that Logan, he saw his friends and associates taken out, and he had tried to help. Right. And in fact, most of that movie, he is trying to help Professor X because he never turns his back on Professor X. But in this movie, he turned his back on Professor X in scenes we never see. And then, tries to continue to not support his friends because he's afraid of being burned, but then supports his friends.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Also, Eastland Burkholder put Tom Hiddleston and Hugh Jackman. Hard to mess up, but sometimes they did. I'm not sure if that's referring to. Is that referring to Loki? Because I did not.
I mean,
see the second
so
season.
yeah, Hugh Jackman's not in Loki, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Tom
I'm not sure
Hiddleston
if you-
sure is, and
Tom Hiddleston didn't do any of the writing on Loki 2. I think he may have produced it there. And he did, spoiler alert, he does die at the end when he sacrifices. So maybe there's parallels there with Wolverine Logan sacrificing himself and Loki sacrificing himself. But I'm not sure.
Loki dies in season 2 of Loki.
Sorry, Pete. Spoiler alert.
I didn't know. I didn't get to it. Yeah.
Amazing. Nor did I.
Yeah.
Because I really hated season 1 of Loki massively, even though I realise it's very important to this film because of the whole time variance authority. And,
but they handled that so well when they were like, "Go watch season 1, episode 5." That's everything.
I did like that.
Thank you. Goodbye.
I did like that. And I did like the bit where he says, "Welcome to the MCU. You're joining at a bit of a low point." I thought that was great.
With this movie, I think it was made for fans. Like at the end of Deadpool 2, when he's time streaming, erasing everybody, and he kills Weapon 11. I mean, granted, that was just a deleted scene from that movie. He's like, "Hey, in the future, your friends may ask you to put on the cowl once again, blah, blah, blah." And it's like, okay, yeah, maybe that will never happen. But it was kind of like you just wanted to put it out in the universe.
Yeah. Well, at the end of that, he even kills Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
In one universe. But what I love
with this film, I mean, like, it's got nitpicks. I got issues with it, but was it fan service? Yeah, but I think this is a time in the MCU where we needed some fan service because we haven't had it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I loved Matthew McFadden's delivery when he says to him about how he absolutely abused his timeline when the stuff he does at the end of Deadpool 2, and he goes, "My God, you did abuse it." Which I thought, brilliant. So I in my usual fashion, I've pulled some slides again. I think it was Cora that I got this from and read it. Some of the others. So these weren't done by me, but I was just looking at sort of, obviously what the quote unquote X-Men franchise, which was the Fox franchise before Disney took over, comprised of, which obviously weren't just X-Men movies in 2 different timelines, but also, the Deadpool movies fell into that as well.
And then New Mutants getting the shaft again there. Oh, dear.
There you go. Yeah. And then
is this in timeline order?
No. These are just things I picked off. The next slide is so convoluted that you can't even really see it. But that's the MCU from sort of 2008 to now, with all the series as well, which is just insane. And then obviously I've got the others, which include things like, Daredevil, Blade, Elektra, Fantastic Four, some of the other bits and pieces. But I think, the only reason I just grabbed those was just so there was something to reference. But I think what I did think was quite clever. I thought this was extremely funny and extremely entertaining. But one of the things I did think was sort of clever was that they gave an end, a bit like, so in Spider-Man No Way Home, we talked about how, they gave an end to Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man iterations. And, they got to sort of complete an arc that they didn't necessarily get to do in the movies, and sort of, draw a line under that and under some of the villains as well and whatever. And I think that this kind of did that for the X-Men and Daredevil and Blade, and Punisher was obviously mentioned in its various iterations. And of course we get, Johnny Storm from Fantastic Four and whatever. So I just thought that did quite a good job of sort of drawing a line under some of those other Fox / Marvel properties. And I just wondered,
even with the credits at the end, it was almost like a farewell send off to the Fox universe, because now it's one. So it was just like, and they even showed the bad films like Fan4tastic, that crap bag of a movie. They showed all the Fox stuff, just like, hey, a farewell, like, hey, we're here now, but this is kind of what got us here, high and low points.
Yeah. No, I kind of, I think, obviously all the surprises we kept getting. I don't know whether to go in chronological order with these or not, but obviously we saw a lot of the villains as well as a lot of the heroes sort of reprise their roles, which was pretty good. I guess one of the earlier things we need to talk about, I guess, is the Cavalrine. Yeah. Because because that, and I love the line where he said, well, we'll treat you a lot better than those fucks down the street.
And he did load his claws up like he loads his arms up in Mission Impossible. He loads his claws up right before he punches them.
Yeah, I did like that. That did really make me laugh. In fact, I nudged you, Graham, I think, on that moment, didn't I?
Yeah, and for me, as you know, as a Hugh Jackman fan, not huge Ackman fan, a Hugh Jackman fan. It was nice to see him in the vest, because when you just showed the posters there, Wolverine used to wear a vest all the time, but now he's got a bit older. He's putting a shirt on. Now, obviously, he's in the yellow spandex hiding, which I'm really glad right at the end that they had his 6-pack there. Obviously, from when, So when myself and Keith first met, it was actually on a former podcast that Clive used to co-host with a good friend of ours, Rob Wickens. There was the Buns of Steel comment that warmed Keith to me, because there was Days of Future Past, where
I was going to say the context of that is we were talking about X-Men Days of Future Past, which I did think was excellent. I didn't like the stuff that I didn't like the stuff that followed, but I did like Days of Future Past and the way it combined both those timelines, and obviously Wolverine being the central character that from both those sides. I said I liked it, and you went straight into the Buns of Steel thing, and I'm like, well, that wasn't the reason. But
you've always got to, every time you kind of mention Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, Buns of Steel is going to come up, of course, and the fact he was wearing a vest, and now Henry Cavill is wearing the vest, right? Because he's the only, because everyone else is Hugh Jackman, whether it's Patch, the kind of James Bond-esque character that Wolverine dons in the comics, and any of the others, the Wild Wolverine, Japanese Wolverine too,
the comic book accurate height Wolverine.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people were lost in that joke, because unless you're a fan of the comics or like the cartoon, a lot of people just isn't Wolverine tall? Like, no, he's 5'3". So I'm kind of people who just like aren't familiar with the comic, like, oh, okay, just a short one. Like, no.
Yeah. I was familiar. I think we talked a little bit about this before we went on air, and I sort of said that we were talking about if we're comic fans or not. And I've said that, all of my interest in the various properties have always come from film and television first, and rather than the source material. And that's, whether we're talking about James Bond or Sherlock Holmes, or indeed Marvel or DC comic book characters, etc. But I have to say the height thing was something that I was always aware of. I think possibly from the animated series more than the comics, but also it was that sort of thing. Hugh Jackman is quite a marvel. No pun intended. Yeah, he is quite a marvel, because he absolutely defined that role 100%, even though he wasn't necessarily the correct height casting. And I just can't, Henry Cavill, that was quite interesting, because I thought, if I had to imagine anyone else playing Wolverine other than Hugh Jackman, it would probably be someone like Cavill. So I thought that was a great little in joke to put in there.
And it's funny because when you talk about casting, back in the 80s when Michael Keaton was cast as Batman, there was no social media, but people were handwriting letters to the studio complaining. So there's always, no matter every time there's casting, you're going to be like, I don't know about that one. Like when I first saw Heath Ledger as the Joker, I was like, that looks horrible. That's not the Joker. That's going to look this stupid. Now he's like one of my favorite Jokers. So casting, I think it depends on the actor, actress, if they can pull up from that role and kind of make it their own, like Michael Keaton did and Heath Ledger did, and now Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And Ryan Reynolds. No, I'd stretch that now that nobody can think of anyone else for Deadpool other than Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, now we've got however many of them we saw on screen, the multiple pools, hence why I've got the name tonight. Because Welsh Pool's been taken. It's already been stolen.
Wrexham Pool was right there, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was tonight. It's been done. But yeah, just to follow on from you, Uncle Pete, it's totally the actor, the guy that was Ryan Reynolds years ago is now synonymous with Deadpool. They're almost one in the same, or in most of our psyche. Especially for those who maybe haven't been keeping up with Welcome to Wrexham and the whole football team and all of that and all of that. It's Ryan Reynolds and that and Deadpool and Hugh Jackman and Wolverine. And I've seen comments online. I saw it from 2017 actually too, that whoever would do Wolverine in the future, not voice acting, but whoever would actually depict Wolverine in live action has got a bigger job than practically anybody.
Yeah, massive.
There's such a massive legacy there.
Yeah. I always kind of thought that Hugh Jackman was to the sort of X franchise what, Robert Downey Jr. / Tony Stark was to the MCU. He was always that kind of semi.
So does it make sense that he's the nexus person or whatever it is, the central person in his time, and that's why? Is that why you think that works then?
Yeah, I guess so.
So he's Marvel Jesus, really? Then that's what you're saying.
Yeah. And right, Deadpool just wants to be, because of course we forget he played Wade Wilson in X-Men Origins as well, didn't he? So
and Deadpool does address. He tells Wolverine, he's like, "You were an X-Man. You were the X-Man." So anybody for the since 2000 when Bryan Singer's X-Men came out, for the last 24 years, have you seen the X-Men movies? The first person they're going to think about is Hugh Jackman and Wolverine.
Yeah. And of course, this marks the first time that he's been in the comic accurate costume, right? After saying that the other stuff looked ridiculous. Yeah.
And which they've addressed in the movies. What do you expect? Yellow spandex?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there's even a joke in X-Men 97 where I think Bishop is getting his uniform and he makes a comment. You expect me to wear this? And Cyclops says, "What do you expect? Black leather?" So it even throws it back.
I love it. Love it.
That's
love that sort of thing. Love that sort of thing. So, I mean, do you guys sort of agree? Obviously I made a bit of a statement there that I thought this ends the story for a lot of those non-X-Men and non-MCU adjacent Marvel films, like the sort of Elektra's Blade. Oh, again, I just thought of a weird thing. Ryan Reynolds was in the third Blade film, right?
Yeah.
Did they make a reference to that?
Yeah, he goes, Blade looks at Deadpool and goes like, "I don't like you." And he goes, "Yeah, you never have." Because when they were filming the movie, those two had beef.
Yeah.
So they kind of do reference it because he's like, "I don't like you." Deadpool's like, "Yeah, you never have."
Yes. And I must admit, I loved the moment. Again, kudos to Chris Evans whenever he turns up in something. I just loved it. And he goes, "Oh, he's going to say it. He's going to say it." And you think it's going to be Avengers Assemble, but it's Flame On.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
But
it.
there's another joke they took beyond, they 100% with it, especially with the end credits right at the end there.
Oh yeah.
With Chris Evans, that's a hard monologue to do, and he blasted it. That was something that was a lot of fun because they could have just left it because he died really quickly, and it's like, okay, we've got this one joke, but they followed through to the end of the joke, and I thought, yeah, tip of the hat there to Sean Levy, the writers, but Chris Evans. My daughter's obsessed by him because I was obsessed with Hugh Jackman. She's obsessed with Chris Evans, especially Captain America. I'm not sure how she's going to react in years to come when she watches, or when she understands that actually it's not Captain America. Anyway, I'm getting all confused here. But yeah. So again, I think the filmmakers they did it. They ended that joke brilliantly, but then that's the end of the character. Keith, back to your question, is that there's a few there, but it's still, because there's some still in the void, like there's Blade, there's Elektra, Channing Tatum's Gambit, big surprise there, and there was what's his face, Pyro as well. I'm not sure if they really did get, maybe killing, that's the end of Fox, as you will, the Fox kind of franchises and the like. But there's still some characters that could make an appearance in the future because they're in the void or they're still not dead, right?
And I think they left that open because at the end when he's talking to the TVA, she's like, "We'll see what we can do." So I go back to that Dumb and Dumber reference. So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah.
There's a chance. Like, I'm not even going to rule out Chris Evans returning as Captain America. Yeah, they say they don't want to, but it's kind of let us know. So you're telling me there's a chance, which is good enough for me sometimes.
Yeah. Hugh Jackman's back. Robert Downey's back, even though different character. So,
this is the thing with all the sort of sci-fi franchises now, isn't it? Is this multiverse concept, fun as it can be, like this film, but it does mean that stakes wise, it's like, well, nobody's ever dead, are they? It's kind of like
100%.
Everything goes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So anyway,
a nice pool. Nice pool is. Do you think a nice pool will come back?
Nice pool. That was funny, wasn't it?
Even in the regular comics, I think there's only a handful of characters who haven't died.
Yeah.
Almost every superhero, supervillain has died, and very few have died and not come back. And it just depends on what the writer, how clever how clever is the writer on how because Deadpool's died, Wolverine's died, Spider-Man, Superman, everybody's died. And it just depends how clever the writing is to bring them back.
Yeah.
And even the rule, like Uncle Pete says, but even the rules where, you can never bring Gwen Stacy back, right? And then until they did, right? So, is it just Uncle Ben now who's the only one?
No, but thing is, they brought Uncle Ben back during Spider-Verse in the comics, where he played another version of Spider-Man.
Oh, I see.
And in the new Ultimate Comics Spider-Man, Uncle Ben is alive, working with J. Jonah Jameson. So everybody comes back.
Everybody, yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. So listen, I don't want to dominate this in terms of I can wax lyrical and talk about stuff, but you guys are the guests on here. So if there's anything in particular regarding this film that you want to talk about or dig into or bring up, or any questions or whatever, please, jump in. I'm
just one thing for me is it's not a perfect film. Did I have a blast with it? 100%. Opening credits, dancing in the NSYNC, man, that was pumping me up. I was making me smile. I smile now thinking about it because it was just so enjoyable. They made you laugh. But one nitpick I have is that villain, Cassandra Nova. The actress did a great job. I think the actress did very well, but I think her writing wasn't fleshed out. It's like, why is she evil? Oh, because she was a twin inside. Okay, but I think she need to get fleshed out a little bit more because then they save her life, helmet, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm evil again. I was just like, the two villains I didn't care for. I think they could have done something different, maybe with a Doctor Doom or something else differently of the villains. I didn't care for Cassandra Nova or Paradox. They felt very inconsequential as far as like the landscape pantheon of Marvel villains.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's fair.
That's been a failure, I think, not in the writing of a lot of the movies, especially TV series as well. There hasn't been a villainous villain, but actually, an antagonist that really drives the story. The worst one, I made a note of it earlier, was the Marvels. The Marvels,
so inconsequential.
Villain, what's the and the unfortunately the actress just didn't have anything to latch on to, and everything just happened. It just kind of fell into place because, well, it had to fall into place, otherwise the film wouldn't happen. But yeah, totally. But I think the two actors, Matthew McFadden for Paradox, really played it well to bring something out of that character. It was very much, I totally agree. There wasn't much there, but I loved his performance. I actually enjoyed his character more the movie went on, but because of him, because he was doing, as I said to the guys, he was doing a Benicio del Toro, what he did in Usual Suspects, where there was a nothing character. One of the guys who gets killed first, and he just pulled something, and he just really latched on and made him completely memorable. Now, I'm not saying Matthew McFadden's Paradox is totally memorable, because I think Cassandra Nova is more memorable. There's some really freaking effects, effectively, but 100%. Yeah, the villains really weren't there because it was, as Pete Mealy said earlier, it was more of a buddy movie. So, yes, it would have been a better movie, maybe with a better villain, but actually we enjoyed it so much because there was this arc for Wolverine, and Deadpool was just being Deadpool, but really, realistically, pulling him out of his, of his barrel, of his funk. Then there. So they weren't the worst, I suppose, is another way of saying it. They were the worst villains we've seen of the MCU in the last 5 years.
I do like the serious side of Deadpool, because even in the comics, he has that love for certain people. Like when he got his daughter in the comics, he's like, man, I got to protect her. So I kind of like how that fed into the movie a little bit. You saw more of the humanity in Deadpool, and that blended with the lack of humanity that Logan was feeling. So like you said, the bad villain was made up for by the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, that buddy cop.
Yeah. And they lent into the that dynamic where they spent a huge amount of the film fighting themselves.
And you could tell they're friends, because it was like years ago, Hugh Jackman played a joke on Ryan Reynolds saying if they were at a Christmas party, he's like, it's an ugly Christmas sweater party. So Ryan Reynolds shows up to this party, everybody's in suits and ties wearing an ugly Christmas sweater. So that was a joke Hugh Jackman played on Ryan Reynolds. So that chemistry already existed. And they just kind of let it flourish in this movie.
Yeah. No, and they did indeed. Absolutely. By the way, one thing I didn't realize until more recently was the actual voice of Cowboy Deadpool was Matthew McConaughey, which I think that's great.
I saw that in the credits. Yeah.
And obviously Blake Lively played Lady Deadpool. And
one of the kid Deadpools was their actual kid.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, nice.
Kidpool. And I've learned only today, because it's been posted on online, that it's actually Mullins, the striker for Wrexham Football Club, is actually Welsh Pool.
Yeah.
Hidden under all of that, which I love, of course, because that's absolutely excellent, and there's another cameo there. But here's one for you I was geeking out on, is that head pool, the kind of zombie head, is apparently Nathan Fillion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Who's now played, this could be his 4th or 5th character in the MCU.
Right.
So I'm
No, more than
wondering,
that. More than that.
is it in MCU? Really?
In the MCU, because he's in every single
James Gunn.
James Gunn one as a different character, and
So
he's
I'm
been
wondering,
yeah.
So he's in all three Guardians of the Galaxy. He's in this one. So there's another one I can't remember now.
Yeah.
So I can't remember what's the name of the actor who's always in Pixar movies. He was in Cheers as well.
Tom Hanks.
No.
John
In
Ratzenberger.
Cheers. Say again?
John
Just-
Ratzenberger.
Yeah. John Ratzenberger. Yeah, there was an in-joke that he was in every Pixar movie. I'm wondering, guys, that if Nathan Fillion is now doing that, so he's always voicing or maybe kind of cameo, so he's actually going to be in every MCU movie, perhaps, which, as a Nathan Fillion fan, that's just going to be awesome and a great pub quiz question in the future.
Now with Deadpool, I think they kind of it was comic accurate, but I think they missed out on an opportunity to use the head from X-Men Origins when Weapon X had his head cut off.
Oh yeah.
I think they missed an opportunity to use him as Deadpool because it was still the wisecracking Ryan Reynolds character. So I felt like a little bit of a missed opportunity that you could have put the propeller on his head.
Did he have his mouth stitched though?
Well, see, in the end credit scene, I don't know if it was a post-credit scene or a deleted scene. It's not stitched, and he goes, shh.
Right. In fact, there's I think the home media version had a different end credit thing than the theatrical version, if memory serves. I think there's like 2 versions or something, but that's nerdy. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm guessing just the general vibe here, speaking to you guys, because we didn't talk about this obviously prior to going live tonight on this, but I'm guessing you all enjoyed the movie then. There's nobody here that sort of thought actually it sucked a bit.
It was
Absolutely
great. Like I said, nitpicks aside, it's the most fun I've had since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yes.
Hands down.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that as well. I mean, is it a good film? You know, there's plenty of argument that no, you know, it's just like one big fan service in jokey type thing. But was it entertaining? Absolutely. Massively.
I mean, I gotta say, like, I think we've had this conversation on other things about like there's good fan service and then there's bad fan service, right? And so this I felt like was just great fan service, and so why is that something to hold against the film, right? Like these are this is the right character to do it with, right? A character that always sort of like breaks the bounds of the comic books, and so here we have it where the character is always played with the movies themselves, and so they put out a buddy cop film that played with the all of the tropes and did it successfully and enjoyably. So I don't feel like people should use the term fan service in a negative light when you're talking about this movie, right? Like it was fan service and we should all be saying thank you, great service. Right? Yeah, leave a good Yelp review. The service was great. And so like I mean I need to see this movie again because I know there are jokes that I missed because there's jokes that caught up to me like 2 minutes later and I was like, oh, that was funny. Right. And I missed it at the time. Like Jennifer Gardner, right. When he says, where's Daredevil? They're like, he died. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And she's like, nah, it's all right. And like, and then it took me like 10 minutes to be like, oh shit, that was her ex-husband. Right.
Yes.
Like and like, that's just hilarious work.
And all the jokes that Gambit was saying, like, man, I always wanted to be part of something. I feel like I've always been there, but like I almost got there. And like, no, because they were supposed to make a Gambit movie.
Yeah. I missed those. That's also funny.
Yes.
I was trying to think, wasn't Gambit in one of the other X-Men movies, but just
X-Men
for like
Origins
5 minutes?
by Taylor Kitsch.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which was.
But here's another one where it's like comic book accurate costuming, right? And yeah.
No, Keith, I have a slight counter to the idea that it's all about the fan service, though, right? I agree with Pete. The fan service is there is great fan service. I loved the sort of, the kind of, homage to Uncanny X-Men 251 with like Wolverine on the wooden cross. I own that comic. I remember reading that comic at the time. That gave me the shivers. And then when he wears the mask, it's like, oh my God, this is so cool. Just totally, took me back to my kind of like inner fanboy was going, yes. But at the same time, I think the reason why it's being so successful, and I think I think if you just have the fan service, if that's all the humor, if it's just meta stuff, I don't think it cuts through. I don't think it cuts through above like us, like the geeky crowd, right?
Mhm.
I think, for me, a lot of the humor is slapstick. It's really, 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 really violent slapstick. It's Tom and Jerry. It's like when I was watching, like, I think it's like the third time that Wolverine and Deadpool were having like a fight and just sort of eviscerating each other. I'm like, this should be repetitive, but it was very cleverly choreographed. But I was just rolling. I just found it so funny, right? So you just got all of that, and then you've just got all of them like bickering and taking the mick out of each other, the absolute, just ripping each other to pieces. And I think you don't need, for us, we get like another level of like fun bits and pieces and chuckles, right? And people can go away after the film and they can like look at all the Easter eggs and things like that and find that on the internet. But I think the point is you don't need that. I think that, it's like my niece who's 18, not into MCU, not really into that. Just sort of, I saw her at a family thing over the weekend. She's like, oh yeah, it's just so funny. I absolutely loved it. And she's just, she was just so like so enthusiastic about it. And I was kind of taken aback because she's always been a bit like, Star Wars, MCU, that's my brother's thing, but she just was like just thought it was hilarious.
Interesting. Maybe I should take my girlfriend then, because I was kind of like, she's up for seeing it and I'd watch it again, but I was just kind of like, if you haven't seen any MCU or Loki or any X-Men films,
that's the thing. I don't think you watch it stony faced. I think you still get this sort of essential, because the character beats still work.
Yeah,
right.
It's just the kind of, it's the sort of the background stuff. It's like the Rob Liefeld's like feet, store in the background.
It's like you don't need to know the history of Tom and Jerry to enjoy Tom and Jerry cartoon or Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. They're beating the crap out of each other. You don't need a backstory, but you can still watch it and enjoy it. You can still get, Deadpool and Wolverine are cussing each other out and beating each other up, like almost hitting each other with frying pans pretty much. And it's really funny the way that they're killing everybody. Like the Deadpool 100 fight. It's funny the way they're killing. He's going like this, stab it, and Wade is pushing him. You don't need to really know the history yet. Fan service is like for us, like the nerd, the comic book nerds, like yes. But like my wife MJ, she's still gonna think it's hysterical because of the writing, the chemistry between the two.
I did take my 19-year-old daughter to the film as well, and at the end, and she hasn't seen a lot of the Fox universe stuff, right? So that stuff was kind of, I think, a little bit of a mystery to her. She did at the end of the film ask me the images of Ryan Reynolds as Weapon 11, but she didn't refer to it as that. She was like, was that a real movie or did they just do that for this film? And I was like, oh my God, that's a real movie. It is such a bad movie. They remade it 2 years later.
Maybe I'll be going a third time.
Yeah.
Just like it. So I want to pose a question. Looking at my notes here, is that I've seen everywhere online, trying to avoid, but you can't. Will this rescue MCU? Will this movie? Okay. Now, can we try? What I'm trying to do is take the money part away, because everything is about, it's the movie business, right? But as far as what we were talking about earlier on about quality, all of us when we had our where are we with MCU earlier on. So the question is, do you believe this will rescue the MCU?
I think in the fact that it's going to create more interest for Captain America: Brave New World. Now, it's up to those films to get close, not live up to at least be close to being entertaining. Otherwise, it's going to be like, you fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you, is kind of it's dangerous territory. But can it? Yes, it's just up for the other films to live up to, get back to a higher standard, not the low point. Like Deadpool said, we don't want to be in that low point anymore. I think they refilmed like 90% of Brave New World because of test audiences.
Oh, really?
So I think there's a lot to live up to, but it is going to create more of an interest. Like, man, Deadpool Wolverine was awesome. I definitely got to go see this next film now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's like Star Trek now, the MCU, right? Like we've established this entity, right? And there's going to be parts of it that some people love, but some people hate. There's going to be parts of it that everyone sort of looks at and says this is garbage, and then there's going to be parts of it that everyone says this is amazing. There's no like saving or there's no Marvel Jesus, right? There's no Messiah. There's going to be good art and bad art, and for the rest of time now, we, as consumers, will get to have good Star Wars, good Star Trek, and good MCU, and probably DC as well. And we're going to get bad Star Wars, bad Star Trek, bad MCU, right? Like, and now it's just a flavor of ice cream that we can get at the store, right?
Yeah.
And like and so it's just going to be one of those things, like I feel like 20 years ago, there was no cookie dough ice cream, right?
Yeah.
Like, but then sometime in the 90s or whenever, somebody made it, and now cookie dough ice cream is everywhere, and there's good versions and shit versions. Sorry, excuse me. And now we're at the same thing with the MCU, right? But it's the same thing. Like 20 years ago, somebody did something comic booky.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that, actually, Pete, because that kind of feeds into what I was sort of alluding to earlier on this stream, was about the fact that I hadn't necessarily been encouraged to follow up on some of the shows that we regularly do, simply because of that reason. I say about the telling the 8-year-old version of me about the word apathy, and the fact that I was feeling like that about Star Wars, Star Trek, and the MCU, or sort of franchises, properties, or whatever that I, always enjoyed. And now I think, that it's been so diluted, and we have so many flavors. And I think where my viewpoint has changed in recent months is, obviously there's a lot of vitriol online with fans getting really upset about all of this stuff and whatever. And my view is, you don't have to be. I used to think you had to be a completist. I used to, I wouldn't, even early on in the MCU phases, I wouldn't dream of watching the next film if I hadn't watched the previous one, because obviously there's a lot of connective tissue and all of that sort of stuff. I kind of got the viewpoint now where I don't need to be a completist. The bits that I like of these things exist and are there to be enjoyed, and we all have a head canon. We can accept the bits we like, and then the ones that we maybe are not so keen on, we don't have to. And I thought long and hard about why this has happened, and there's a number of things. I do think that some of the people that are controlling these franchises, that are managing the franchises at the sort of managerial level, they obviously have to answer to the studio that owns them, which, in this case, Disney or whatever, the corporation. And I think that some of the creatives that get hired, mainly talking about writers here, maybe a few directors, but certainly the writers aren't necessarily that good. And I just think that the quality control on a lot of stuff needs to improve, rather than, and as I said, I blame the people at the top managing it, because they're the ones making those decisions, and they're not necessarily great.
Studio involvement can kill, like I forget, the Great Pooh brought up Spider-Man 3 earlier. Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3, or someone brought it up. How, it's not, but Sam Raimi wanted to make a good movie, but the studio said, no, you're going to put X, Y, and Z in the movie. He's like, okay, fine. Kiss my ass. I'm going to do this. And then you get fucking Tobey Maguire doing that, and it's cringe. Studio involvement can really be bad. If they don't trust let the writer, the director, let them do what they do. But you got to have trust in them, and don't hire somebody because you think they're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Look at the track record. What if they direct? Oh, they've never directed an action film before. Okay, so why the hell am I going to give them a Marvel movie? You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll probably get to it, but like the Russo brothers are back for Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars. I'm good with the casting with RDJ because I trust the Russo brothers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that does kind of bring me into the next bit, if you like, is obviously the announcements. And this weekend, the same weekend that Deadpool and Wolverine comes out, there's also Comic-Con, and there's always a Marvel panel with announcements of the upcoming slate for the remainder of Phase 5 through to Phase 6 and whatever of the MCU. And they obviously announced this big news here that the Russo brothers are back, that have obviously had success, with Endgame and Infinity War and Captain America Civil War, and a lot of the really well-known hit ones. And then of course they reveal, that there's one man that could play, because they've obviously dropped this whole Kang thing. I never really had any investment in this Kang Dynasty arc that they were going to do anyway, because I had missed a lot of those films and shows and didn't really know the character. Of course, I know Doctor Doom, and they make this announcement. In fact, Clive, you said about you were trying to be the Wolverine colors or whatever. I don't think in the lighting I've got in the studio it really shows up, but I did wear a green waistcoat along with my along with my Deadpool badge to try and sort of represent the Doctor Doom and the Robert Downey Jr. of it all. So yeah, as we sort of got onto that now, what are your thoughts? Are any of you cynical? Do you think this is desperation, or do you think it's awesome? Or what are your thoughts on that announcement? Jump in.
They're playing it safe. They're and they're also the timing could be better. You release Deadpool Wolverine. There's a lot of positive hype there, and then you bring this in. So there's going to be a lot of positive hype for many months until what happens next, until the next movie, until the next TV series, and they have to keep up the quality. But yeah, you got massive a track record with the Russo brothers and Downey Jr. as well. Writers as well. If they bring any writers back, which will be under the radar for most people apart from us, that's really where they're going to have to have quality or a track record. So I agree there. But yeah, for me, it's all a bit of fun, all a bit of hype right now. This is the second one that they've practically changed their slate. Blade wasn't even mentioned. Apparently, it's supposed to be coming out next year.
Which, by the way, on that note, Graham, on that note, I did like in the film when they go, how many Punishers? There's been like 5, and he goes, "There's only been one Blade, and there's only gonna be."
And Deadpool looks at the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys been following Wesley Snipes on Instagram or no?
No, but
Okay, yeah. Wesley Snipes has some words about Blade, yeah. And I did not know he was in this movie, but I've been following him online, and he has been going off on Blade naysayers and verbally asking why the MCU didn't bring him back for the Blade movie, and instead of casting, right, it's Mahershala Ali. And so I was like, wow, he's burning bridges. But then he was in this movie. So I was like, I don't know, maybe there's like a bigger plan. I'm all in for anything Wesley Snipes because, yeah, that's another episode, like perfect casting, right? And great execution on 2 movies. I know Blade Trinity isn't super well received, but he did a great job.
I'm not going to lie. I like the Blade trilogy.
Yeah.
Quite enjoy them, but yeah.
So
yeah. Any other thoughts about? I think
the piggybacking what Grapefruit said. It is a safe bet because RDJ is and in Tropic Thunder. I think he got an Oscar nomination for playing the dude that's playing the dude that's playing the other dude because he really. I know I have to have faith in him because playing Tony Stark saved that man's life and career. He was on the downward spiral, and he helped jumpstart the MCU in 2008 with Iron Man. Talk about another thing with MCU, I kind of trust their casting. They're about 80-85% awesome casting for me. I don't think you could have found a better Tony Stark. Now granted, I don't know. Now, thing is, we don't know just yet. Yeah, he's cast as Victor Von Doom, but this is the multiverse. So is it a variant where Tony Stark, because there's two comic book stories where Victor Doom becomes Iron Man.
Right. I was going to ask that. I'm glad you said that because as a non-comic person who, I know obviously Doctor Doom and Fantastic Four and whatever, but from the other movies and things and animated TV shows and stuff like that. But that was a question I had is he playing Victor Von Doom or is he a variant of Tony Stark that's Doctor Doom? And I don't think
we have no idea yet. That's
I would hazard a guess that even the writers at this point couldn't give you a definitive answer, right? Because they're probably going to be, focus grouping it, testing, and they've probably got ideas that go both ways. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. They probably got 2 branches of the timeline.
Yeah.
One where he's playing Tony Stark, one where he's playing exactly.
Another one of my favorite lines from Deadpool Wolverine is like, we're a little bit done with the timelines, right? Isn't this just all been enough? Can't we just end this? And then it just ends the fight. I was like, yes, exactly.
And the long running times. I did like it when he when he
referenced that. That's another thing. This movie was only 2 hours long, Vice 2.5.
Yeah. No, that was cool. Clive, what about you? Any thoughts about this casting or what it means for Marvel? And are you an optimist or a cynic about it, or a bit of both?
I guess. I understand why you want to bring like the trusted people back, right? I've really, the Russo brothers have directed probably my favorite versions. My favorite, movies in the in the MCU. So I can understand why you want to bring him back. I can understand why you want Robert Downey Jr. back because he's a great actor, and he can play more than one character, personally, I don't want variant Tony Stark. I want proper Doctor Doom. Thank you very much. I want, the rule of Latveria. I want, the man. But I just, my underlying feeling is that it doesn't feel fresh. I don't feel like an excitement that we're entering a new chapter and what's the new exciting thing. It just, it's like I was, we talked about Deadpool and Wolverine, how we enjoyed it. That for me felt more like a wake for the for the Fox movies, right? And a sort of like lots of kind of it's not like it sort of set up the X-Men in the MCU. Like there's no hint of that. It's all about, oh yeah, we've got to bring in the Fantastic Four first. And, and I've got hopes for that movie, the 60 set thing, that could be fun. Although we're in some kind of alternate Earth, clearly, because otherwise, how could we never have heard them in an MCU? And it just gets all, and we're still in timelines and timelines. So, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's like, I mean, I'm a Doctor Who fan, and we're currently in the midst of they brought back the guy who rebooted Doctor Who back in 2005.
Chris Eccleston?
No,
sorry, I was trolling. Sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, the actual like show creator and writer, and
oh right,
and so he's learned stuff in the meantime. So it's like you don't get the exact same person coming back in. So it's interesting from that point of view. But at the same time, you're like, it's I want things to move forward with the things I love, and it does sort of feel, but at the same time, I look at the history of like Marvel Comics, and there's been some really lean times and some kind of things they tried to do big universe crossovers, and they've just gone, and it's and then out of nowhere they brought in like some comics creators who've come in from a different country, or they've just got a new generation of people who grew up loving this particular comic, and then suddenly this comic, which it was always like a sort of a down there, is suddenly up there, and everyone, I mean, the X-Men's a good example, right? Until Chris Claremont took over the X-Men, like that was like not even a B-level kind of,
it got canceled.
Seller. I got cancelled, and then he brings it back, and suddenly, got.
And on that note, it's fair to say that even the X-Men movies have had their ups and downs, right? And I've, for the most part, enjoyed that franchise. But
it's like they said, there was a joke in one of the First Class movies. Oh, the third one always sucks because
Yeah, and boy, that was true. Uncle Pete, I know you've messaged me that you've got I had no idea how long this was going to run.
Oh yeah, no sweat.
So you've got
we're used to long run times.
There you go. We're still on run times. Before you head off, though, I want to give you the opportunity to promote anything you want, where people can find your work, what you're working on, etc. It's been good to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. First off, it's great meeting you, gentlemen. You can follow me on YouTube under Your Friendly Neighborhood Uncle Pete. Mostly what I talk about is horror movies. So when you watch a horror movie and you see the victim do something stupid, like run upstairs instead of running outside, that's what I talk about on my channel. And I rate that person using a nails in a coffin scale. So if you do something stupid, like run upstairs instead of running outside, I give you 1 nail in the coffin. But you can get up to 4 nails in a coffin if you do something really smart, like sacrifice to save others. So I talk about, why did this person make such a dumb decision? It's on the YouTube called Your Friendly Neighborhood Uncle Pete. And I'm in Josh's movie, the last Amityville movie. It was a blast to be part of. It's on Blu-ray now through SRS Cinema. It's on Prime Video and Tubi right now as well. It was really awesome being part of an Amityville movie. It was a blessing to be part of. So, yeah, definitely go check it out from Josh's channel as well.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I need to. It's on my list of things to check out for sure. So that's great. But yes, I'll try and put links to this stuff in your channel and whatever in the description once this is published.
Yeah, it was a fun conversation, guys. Thanks for letting me join in. I appreciate it.
No worries. I appreciated your input.
Have a good night, gentlemen.
Have a good one.
Have a good night.
So, guys, I don't know whether you want me to wrap this up or whether you want me to, or whether you're happy to stay on and talk for a bit. It's entirely up to you guys, really, because I don't want to, as I said, you're the guests. Is there anything about Deadpool and Wolverine, MCU, Hollywood franchises, any of that stuff that you want to, have a platform to talk about it before we bring things to an end.
The only thing I can think of to say here, right, is something that I know we've talked a lot about in various other streams, and it's harkening back to stuff that I think we've all said here. But I think the key to successful media is writing, and without the groundwork of good writing, there's no enjoyable media, right? And so I'm gonna just tie back a couple of things in that, Graham, you said like. The Benicio del Toro in Usual Suspects like elevated the character above the writing, but you still had the base of great writing in that film, which means that together the two were a powerhouse, right? And I think we could point to movies that had terrible writing but maybe a good character in them, and then it's not as satisfying, right? And so I guess there's a lot of Star Trek that rings true to for me, right? Where there's pieces that are great, but then it starts to fall apart, and that's it. I tie it back to the writing. I don't really care about the stunt casting or the directing and leadership changes as much as I care about the writing. And something else you said, Graham, which is like, most of us can't name the writers of these things, right? I know Ryan Reynolds has a writing credit along with, was the director Sean Levy? Is that right? I think he's also got a writing credit on it and on this one. And I don't know, that sort of struck me as like, I wonder, what names got left off of this so that the guild could give them writing credits. And so I just want to say, like, yeah, I think that what we should be looking for, what we should be developing is the fandom of the writers who write the good stuff, which is something we could take from the comic book world, right? Like everybody knows the Frank Millers, right? And I guess I want to go back to classic and Stan Lee because I don't know enough of the modern ones apart from Frank Miller. Brian Michael Bendis, there we go, got another one in. And so that's what I'd love to see in the media scape as well, right? Like we elevate those creatives and centralize them in our fandom because that's who I think is the basis of the good work.
Yeah, and just to properly credit there. Sean Levy is credited with writing, as is Ryan Reynolds, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and Zeb Wells. So 5 writers on this.
Rhett Reese, though, is another one who like helped with the first 2, right? And was he a producer on the film as well? I feel like I recognize that name.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. So yeah.
There we go.
But writing is. Writing is everything, isn't it? Let's be honest. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking there quickly that it is Stephen McFeely is the writer from Doomsday, who, as a writing partner, did the Avengers. So they would have done Winter Soldier first, Captain America Winter Soldier, and then had been Infinity War Endgame. So, yeah, safe pair of hands again, but again, a decent foundation working with the Russo brothers to do the big tentpole movies coming up, but everything in between. There's actually I checked earlier. There's a lot of content still to be delivered, also on the TV side as well, and that is within the next, as we speak now, the middle of 2024, in the next 3 years. But even in the next 18 months, I think there's going to be maybe 6 or 7 movie and TV series all being produced and then out there to stream or even hit the cinemas as well. So it's still a massive task to keep us entertained as well. Well, it's entertained first, but then it's engaged. And that's a tough one there, because otherwise I'm just going to be waiting until Doomsday. And I mean the movie, not until the end of time, that is.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're both saying, because, I remember when I was at film school, there was always this saying that you could make a a bad movie out of a good script, but you couldn't make a good movie out of a bad script. And I think there's a lot of truth there. I know Pete and I have had endless conversations on the Star Trek side of things about our frustration with some of the writing, plot and character choices that they do. And what about you, Clive? Have you got thoughts on that?
I mean, on the kind of, where franchises are and the sort of, big studio movies versus kind of indies and that kind of thing, I come back to this idea of IP, that everything has to be IP now. Everything's intellectual property. Everything is a franchise, and some things that makes sense. And look, I'm guilty in myself of I'm a horror movie fan. I've gone and I've watched all those Halloween movies, no matter how bad, but I do try and kind of support like the films which are trying to do something different, which are trying to kind of, and it's not always about like what's the most original film. Sometimes it's just about like this film isn't a remake of a reboot or a sequel. It's just, I mean, even when it comes to like, it's weird. It's like it seems to have come even now kind of invading like the independent world. I mean, with like things with characters like IP, like coming out of copyright, and then you got things like the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey movies, which Keith, I know you can speak to because you're in that franchise, aren't you?
Apparently, I'm part of the Poohniverse. I want to, Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel, DC, all these media franchises that it would be nice to be part of, that are obviously big studio franchises. But you're right, there's low budget independent film franchises as well. And there is I think they're calling it the Poohniverse, which is based around the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. And you know what? I'm very grateful to be part of that that universe. So I'm not, this is no way, in case they're watching, I'm in no way knocking it, but you're right. It's even trickled this idea.
Yeah. I mean, just to be clear, I wasn't saying that to as a diss on those movies. I haven't seen. I haven't seen them myself. I haven't got to them yet. But it's just the idea of this kind of IP being all pervasive, of just like no one wanting to take a risk, no one wanting to put money into stuff, and it's this kind of, that us having kind of completely lost that middle budget level of filmmaking that we used to have in the 70s and 80s and into and it just gradually went away until you get the massive blockbusters, which all have to be IP, which all have to be pre-sold because there's so much riding on them. Mm-hmm. And then you have like the super low budget stuff, which, or, kind of art housey stuff, which will come out very small releases or go straight to streaming, and then, and now, this idea, there was this idea that the streaming meant we were going to get those mid-budget things back, right? We are seeing like things like, romantic comedies and dramas and stuff gradually creeping back, but the writing just isn't there. Touch it, again, looping back to Pete's point, it's just it's this thing of like IP and content. It's this everything viewed through this kind of corporate, uncreative lens, and I just find that so depressing. I don't want to leave us on a down note, but it does feel like it's kind of like a, it's the sort of thing which it's ultimately one of the things that's really funny about Deadpool and Wolverine is they just rip that idea to, don't they? They just really, they're like, oh, like we all know this is owned by Disney, and Disney, and the MCU is going through a really bad patch at the moment, and they made this film which was rubbish, but wink wink, we know that it's rubbish. And it's just, at least there's an honesty to that, right? And it's fun, so I'm up for my IP stuff as long as it's fun. Like I remember when we watched the trailers, Graham, like you watched the trailer for Alien Romulus, and you were like, turned to me, was like, I have no interest in that whatsoever. In this completely like this monotone. I was like, oh, okay then, fine. And I was like, I sort of do have an interest in it, even though it's like the nth iteration of that monster, and they're just going back to the well again and again and again. But yeah, so I feel like I'm undermining my own point. It's like, original content, except for shiny thing that I quite like the IP of, but so yeah.
But when you go see
that's how they
get
you. They say they get you. They hook you with the thing you love. So
yeah. But you said earlier on that you're now a dad and you have to literally pick and choose what you watch.
This is true.
Would something of an IP that is all packaged up and with all this bling and beautifulness presented to you, would you go, you know what? No, I've got 3 slots. I've got 4 slots here. Half an hour here, half an hour there, half an hour there. I'd actually rather watch an indie film that is actually 90 minutes long. I may have to watch it in chunks of 30 minutes, and that's all the kids are going to give me here. Or am I really going to invest for the 2-hour big Hollywood one? I'm not sure. The way we've spoken of late, you'd opt for the former. You'd opt for the 90 minutes, not because it's shorter, it's because you're going to get a lot more out of it, even chunked up like that.
Look, if we're being real, as a super tired dad, then I'm looking at, I'm like, how long is it? Right. And if I'm really, really tired, I'm like, I'm going to watch something I've seen before, because then if I nod, I still know the story beats. I know I'm going to enjoy this. Right.
Yep.
And which, so if I'm going to watch new stuff, then it has to be something I'm really excited about, or it has to be something where, or sometimes it's just like I just end up waiting for things until I hear, like, from people I trust, oh no, you should really check that out. I know it didn't get the best reviews, or you would like this, right? So that word of mouth then becomes that much more important, even though you maybe have your trusted reviewers or things like that, and I still will look at that stuff. But yeah. I agree, Slyn Burke-Holder. It's like there comes a point where you can't be that completist, right? You can't tick everything off, even though I must admit there was a point where I was that person. I do like the sort of like, I've watched them all, but when you start coming up against stuff like Secret Invasion, then you're like, no, I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
No, I get it. It's a very interesting and complicated topic, and obviously we only have so much time. It's something I definitely battle with, is trying to get balance with life in general, but also with my entertainment, whether it's franchise based or independent discoveries and whatever. So yeah, but on the subject of time, we've actually been going for 2 hours. Interestingly enough, I had no idea where this was going to go this evening. This is all a little bit, I'm a bit out of practice because it's something that, as mentioned at the beginning, not done in nearly a year. So I really want to thank you guys for, suggesting it, because it was the 3 of you that kind of suggested I did this, and then obviously Uncle Pete, when he saw I was doing it, wanted to throw his hat in the ring as well, and very glad he did. But before we sign off, I just want to give you all the opportunity, if there's anything you want to promote or anything you want to talk about, now is the platform to do it. So anything from any of you? handles
Not
to
just
follow you on?
not just yet. We're in the process of making, I think, but future opportunities for my good self, at least.
Cool.
Clive, can I plug Castle Beef?
Oh, please do. Yes.
Castle Beef, an independent game that's getting put out. Sorry, I have no idea what's the relationship there, but I first saw it on your feed, and yeah.
Yep, that's my brother Richard Ashenden has designed and created this new kind of card-based game called Castle Beef, and they've been crowdfunding for it. I've seen like they've just sort of got back from like hot off the presses, the sort of 2.0 version of the deck. It's looking really nice. It's a brilliantly fun game to play, and there's just a lot of humor in the illustrations. And yeah, I'm really thanks so much, Pete, for kind of
I don't have my copy yet, but believe me, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, it's Castle Beef, Castle_beef on Instagram. Check it out.
Yeah,
cool.
Okay. Anything else for you, Clive, or is that it for the moment?
For the moment, I mean, you can always find my short films by putting in my name on Vimeo, or I would like to kind of just sort of tip the hat to, if on YouTube, if you go to Apocalyptic Conservatory Studios, you can see the films of our late friend Mike Tack, which both myself and Keith had acting roles in. And we miss you, Mike. But if you love your horror, there's just all kinds of fun stuff for you there. So do go and check that out.
It would have been his birthday last Thursday, so we always raise a glass to Mike. A few more final comments. Also heard Deadpool and Logan movie was good for normies, not super fans. So there you go, reinforcing that that take your significant others or whatever to see it, even if they're not fans of the franchise. And they've also had fun. Thanks. So I appreciate that. I mean, if you want to check out more work at this end, you can email us at lswotcast@gmail.com, as in let's see what's out there, cast@gmail.com. You can follow us on social media, either Home Media Minefield or LSWOT Cast. I've got another channel, British Isles, EYLES, as in my last name, where there's some short films that I've written, produced, and directed and made on no budget for you to check out. I hope to be one of the things I am trying to do is add to that with the Urban Chiller Tales Volume 2. So stay tuned for more on that. But if you have indeed enjoyed this and want to see this more regular, or any particular films or franchises or topics that you want us to cover, then please do, if you found this later, put it down in the comments, and I might be encouraged to do more of it. And check out some of the other work, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. But for now, on behalf of the guests and myself, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch and get this far. And we may see you again on Home Media Minefield Presents.
Let's see what's out there.
Let's see what's out there. Bye for now. Take care.